Distributech 2023, one of the sponsors of these interviews, and these are interviews with thought leaders from around North America and the globe. Our sponsors are H2 Scan. H2 Scan is the leading sensor manufacturer for hydrogen sensing in a lot of different applications, in transformers, in battery room safety, in processes and safety, in industrial, and in the future hydrogen economy. So I want to thank our sponsors, and I want to thank all of our guests, and I hope you enjoy this interview. My next guest is Daniel Barber. He is the co-founder and CEO of DNA Energy. And yes, it's DNA. Daniel, welcome. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Alan.
You're coming here from Australia.
That's right.
Tell me a little bit about your background and how you got in the power industry.
Yeah, a little bit different to the usual guys in the industry. I left school at 16, fell into a job at Ernst & Young where I did tax consulting for a couple of years and then worked on the trading floor at Lehman Brothers in the 90s. Did a bit of consulting and HR consulting. And then in about 2010, I got asked by a friend to help out with a contract with something in solar. Kind of quite liked it, thought it was a cool industry, didn't know anything about it. And then set up a company. We did some solar and energy audits. And then a few years ago, we set up DNA Energy to do demand management.
So that is a totally different story than most people.
Yeah. Not an engineer.
Yeah, I went to Purdue Engineering and got my, it didn't happen there. No. We're going to get back to this thing on solar in a minute, but tell me a little bit about DNA Energy and who you are, what you do, and how does it benefit a utility?
Yeah, so we're a demand management and demand response technology company. We're purposely hardware and software. We've got a great software product that controls solar batteries, that kind of stuff. But we've got a really unique hardware device that does asset level controls on a proprietary wireless network, on our wireless network. And so we could go into a shopping centre or a school, for example, and control all the aircon and all the pumps and all the electric hot water wirelessly around the building with instantaneous responses. And so it's great for grid support and spot price arbitrage.
That's amazing. That is excellent. That's it. And you're working in Australia now?
In Australia primarily, only in Australia now.
Yeah. Okay. And your plan is to go global, or are you looking Australia, North America, or specifically?
Yeah, or both actually. North America first. Okay. So we're here. We've been scoping out the market remotely for about 12 months. We figure we've got about another 6 to 12 months runway to be here. So the purpose of being here is to network, grease palms, and meet a lot of people, but also to find out how relevant what we do is in the States. To a certain extent, electrons are electrons, they're the same all over the world, but how it's managed and how the industry operates is very different here, I've realised that. There's some parts of the industry that are way ahead in Australia, and there's some parts that are way ahead in the States. So we need to dissect that and work out what the business model looks like here and what our offering will be.
That's good. And when do you plan to come to, you said you're kind of scoping it out?
6, 12 months, okay. I think. I think it will take that long to, make enough friends, pilots, that kind of stuff.
So I want to switch gears. We're going to not talk about you or DNA Energy. We're going to talk about utilities and the problems, both now. When you see things in Australia, you see things here, what are the common current problems they're dealing with?
Not enough energy to get around the grid is the big problem as we transition to renewables. Electric vehicles here, the industry is a lot more developed, but the problems are the same. There's only so much power to get around, and I think that a lot of good work's being done in generating power and where it's coming from. That's great with distributed and utility scale generation, that's fantastic, but the poles and wires are only so big. Everyone's talking about vehicle to grid and how's the two-way going to work, who's going to install them. All these problems I think are quite common in Australia and in the States, and we're a bit behind you going through that problem, but we've got more network problems. We've got a huge country and 25 million people, 26 million people, and so servicing that is very, very difficult.
Primarily on 2 coasts.
Yeah, well, 1 coast primarily, to be honest with you.
Really?
Most of the population, yeah.
Okay. When you look at the problems and you think of the problems of technological challenges, right? They got technology challenges. Some of them are just demand curve challenges that they haven't thought about. For instance, we have one of our communities that we publish is transformer technology, and transformers have been pretty flat, so the numbers produced were the numbers needed, and well, now the demand is just absolutely skyrocketed, particularly here in the United States. Electrification of transportation is one of the reasons. Another reason is moving a lot of manufacturing that was overseas. There's a new chip manufacturing that's coming into Arizona from Taiwan. They need $300 million worth of transformers. They're having a hard time finding them. We have one of our sponsoring companies, Virginia Transformer, has a new plant in Chihuahua, Mexico, but they don't want to put more than 25% of their production with any one company, right? And so they're struggling to meet that. When I say they, the chip manufacturers trying to get all of their transformers, they can't get it from one place. Yep. And sometimes the lead time on some transformers is as much as 3 years now. That's not where we've been. So, but that's true in every asset class. That's true of wires. That's true of any kind of technical aspect of where we are. Demand curve has changed everything. The war in the Ukraine has changed everything, right? Suddenly people are going, oh my gosh, we gotta be power independent. Yep. In Australia, so speak directly to Australia, in Australia, are you power independent or are you dependent on a lot of oil from other people?
We're fairly independent. It's a big coal and some gas fired. There's a lot of fracking there, not nowhere near as much as here, but it exists. We're hurtling towards renewables. And so there are some times of day now where whole states are excess power for whole parts of the day. It might be on a Sunday, on a perfect sunny day, but we're getting there really, really quickly. But we don't really rely on imports so much. There's a big coal mining industry there, which has got another 30 years in reality until it's properly going out. And there's some complications around how that's managed. Some are closing earlier, some have to run longer. Some are going to have to stay open longer because we're not going to be 100% renewable in 10 or 20 years. It's just not going to happen. But yeah, we don't have the problems that are faced in Europe in particular and in the States.
When you know that thing about we're going to have to, there are too many people that think we're going to turn the switch and we're going to be all renewable in 3 to 5 years or by 2030. It's not going to happen. We're still going to be dependent upon hydrocarbons, whether that's gas or coal. Yep. We're not particularly happy about coal in this country. We want to shut, the environmentalists want to shut all coal down. Yep. China and India are building coal-fired plants, so it all goes into the same atmosphere, right? We don't solve the problem for people living in LA or Australia when the environment is affected by things that are happening in China or India. But that interdependence is something that's happening more and more. How are you at DNA addressing the fact that you're bringing something that is both scalable and both applicable to a specific area or a specific need? How are you bringing that, when you bring that to the North American market, what's your message?
Yeah, for us the message is going to be the same as Australia, which is we ultimately provide network support to assist the transition. And so EVs is a great example. EVs are going gangbusters here. But there's a lot of problems where EVs can't dispatch, they can't give their energy out at the full rates. Right. And so we can assist that by managing energy in the building to assist them to do more. We can assist by managing the solar and battery relationship better by controlling the loads, so having the generation and the storage and the loads. And by doing that, you can get an extra 20% out of that solar and battery relationship. So it can increase the business case, which increases adoption, which means more is getting onto the market better. We can also assist with the network problems where they're constrained grids, which we're doing a lot of in Australia, where there's just not enough juice and the operator has to upgrade or they can defer. And so we're working with the operators to defer it so they can use their money on other projects. And so we're, by stealth, sitting in the background, helping everything else develop more by being smarter around controlling how much power is used in commercial buildings.
Do your customers have concerns about cyber security that you got to address?
All of them do, yep.
Okay.
Yep, all of them do, as everyone should do right now. There's been a few really high profile security breaches in Australia recently as well with major national brand names. And so our system is very secure. Everything's encrypted. We have two-factor authentication. We've got not quite military scale, but as close to military scale security in our system.
Excellent, because that's going to be a major issue with a lot of people in the U.S. And we're going to be doing some cybersecurity conferences later on with smart grid forums in Amsterdam. And one of them is a cybersecurity. It's going to be excellent. Look it up, Smart Grid Forums. They're out of London. They do some great work around technical things. I think that's a potential world problem, and I think they're going to address it. They're going to have the who's who of IEEE and the who's who of IEC come together on cybersecurity.
When you combine cybersecurity with energy security, that's a big problem to solve.
Yeah, it is, yeah. And now energy security is even somebody shooting rifles at your transformers from a mountaintop.
Yeah.
We've had several instances in the United States where power was taken out of a substation by somebody firing a gun at it.
That's hard to account for.
Well, it's hard to predict and hard to account for because I think...
And hard to stop.
And hard to stop. Because I think everybody in America's got one, a gun.
Yeah.
Right, so if they're mad at...
That's a separate issue.
Separate issue.
Let's not go into that now.
Yeah, let's not do that. Yeah. But one of the big problems that we hear over and over again is labor.
Yes.
You know, the grays are graying out. Boomers are, leaving the marketplace in droves.
Yep.
The next generation, and I don't mean the kids coming out of high school and college. I mean the kids that are 30, 35, my son's generation. One of the things that has been clear about it is it used to be pay, benefits, job security. Now, number one is I want to do something that matters. I want a job or a career that matters. Providing power and decarbonization and decentralization is huge. It matters. So we are attracting, for the first time, we're attracting more people into the utility industry and in other parts of the industry. Same problem in Australia or different?
It's acute. It's horrific, actually. Our biggest problem is trades. So we've got a really complex system, but the biggest problem is trades. Partly that there's such a trade shortage, you just got to find a good trade person. It's hard enough. When you found them, they're so rare that they charge a huge amount of money, like 50% premium on US rates, I think. And then finding one that cares enough, because they don't have to care, because if they don't get the business, they've got another job lined up. That's kind of when you're in the weeds of it, those are problems. And so we've got huge problems around that. And I think it was an obvious problem 5 years ago that we were going to be here, and the government didn't do anything about it, which is pretty disappointing, to be honest with you. It's not a money issue. It's not a jobs issue. It's not a purpose issue. It's just an absolute shortage and lack of foresight in training.
We're maybe 2 years away from that here, and we really haven't done a lot. There's a thing called the Perkins Act, which spends $5 billion a year on trades, on getting them ready. From
a school and university age, or later?
After high school and going to technical schools as opposed to going to university and getting a 4-year degree. It's called the Perkins Act, named after Carl Perkins, who passed away. It's beginning to address the problem, but the problem is, because of boomers aging, the problem is getting bigger. And even the trades have to have a better ability to use technology, right? Which would I assume be the same with your company, because they have to know how to use the technology to make the technology work, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of the problem that we're seeing is you had the electrician who started to get to solar, and they had no solar experience. And because there was so much of it, not they got lazy, but there was just no reason to skill up on it other than to do the job. Now you're seeing the requirements for people not to be engineer trained, but if they had an engineering type background, I think it would really help, to be honest with you, and an ability to understand technology. And it is a challenge that we face as well. We know if we don't have a very specialized electrician, they're not going to understand it. And although it's still connecting wires, there is more sophistication to it. And there might be a very small amount of, flicking a few switches, not programming, but it's more than just connecting wires. And I don't think that's being addressed at an educational level at all, or a training level.
Okay. Good point. All right, Daniel, thank you so much for joining us. I wish you good luck on your ventures here into the United States, and good luck with what you're doing in Australia.
Many thanks, Alan. Cheers.
This has been an APC Technologies production, and we thank you for joining us. Our sponsors have been H2 Scan and Distributech. And of course, the communities of APC Technologies, which is Transform Technology, Power Systems Technology, Green Energy Technology, and Women in Power Systems. So thank you.